Most investors don't lose money because they are wrong. They lose money because they cannot emotionally tolerate being right for long enough. If you have ever sold an investment, not because the fundamentals change, but because the discomfort became unbearable, then this video is not really about markets, strategies, or timing. It is about how your brain reacts to loss. In theory, investing is straightforward. You identify assets with positive expected value, you manage risk, and you allow time and probability to do the work. That logic is simple, rational, and well understood. In practice, almost no one follows it consistently. People panic. They sell too early. They abandon solid strategies after temporary drawdowns. They react to price movement as if it were information, even when nothing meaningful has changed. The reason is not a lack of intelligence. It is not poor education. It is the way the human brain is wired to process loss. The market does not only test your analysis, it tests your nervous system, your emotional tolerance, and your ability to stay consistent while your instincts are telling you to act. One of the strongest forces in behavioral finance is loss aversion. Loss aversion means that the psychological impact of losing money is significantly stronger than the pleasure of gaining the same amount. Not equal. Stronger. This imbalance shapes behavior in ways that are both predictable and destructive. Losses capture attention immediately, they create urgency, they narrow perception, they generate the feeling that something must be done right now, even when the optimal decision is to do nothing. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. For most of human history, losses were not abstract. They represented threats to survival. Food, shelter, safety, social standing. Losing meant danger. The brain evolved to react quickly to loss, not to calmly evaluate long-term probabilities. Financial markets exploit this mismatch between ancient survival mechanisms and modern probabilistic systems. This is why successful investing is so counterintuitive. What most people misunderstand is this: investing success is not primarily about choosing the right asset. It is about remaining invested long enough for a statistical edge to express itself. A correct decision can still feel deeply uncomfortable in the short term. That discomfort is not a signal that something is wrong. It is the cost of uncertainty. Imagine a long-term investor who buys a solid asset. The thesis is clear. The fundamentals remain intact. The valuation makes sense based on available information. Then the price drops 15%. Objectively, nothing important has changed, only the price. Psychologically, everything changes. Doubt appears. Fear enters the conversation. The investor begins to ask questions that feel responsible, but are driven by discomfort rather than data. What if I'm wrong? What if this keeps falling? What if I sell now and re-enter later at a better price? Selling feels like control. It feels like relief. It feels like taking action in the face of uncertainty. But the decision is not driven by new information. It is driven by emotional pain. Later, the asset recovers. The investor watches from the sidelines, no longer afraid, but now filled with regret. Not because the analysis was wrong, but because the emotional response overpowered the process. This is not an exception. It is a systematic pattern that repeats across markets and timeframes. Loss aversion does not only cause investors to sell winners too early, it also causes them to hold losing positions for far too long. Because realizing a loss feels like admitting failure. Selling a losing position transforms temporary pain into something final. Holding allows hope to remain alive, even when the evidence is deteriorating. So people delay. They rationalize, they average down, they wait for a recovery that may never come. The result is a destructive paradox. Winners are cut short. Losers are given unlimited patience, not because people are irrational, but because their brains are responding exactly as they were designed to respond. The same mechanism becomes even more visible in trading. A trader enters a position with a clear plan. The entry is defined, the risk is calculated, the stop loss is placed. Price moves slightly against the position. The loss is small, but the emotional reaction is disproportionate. The trader becomes hyper-focused. Every tick matters. Every candle feels significant. The position becomes personal. At that point, rules begin to bend, the stop is adjusted, the original logic is questioned. The plan is modified in real time, not because the probabilities changed, but because discomfort increased. These decisions feel rational in the moment. They are not. They are attempts to escape emotional pain. Loss aversion does not simply create discomfort, it distorts judgment. Under stress, the brain prioritizes immediate emotional relief over long-term outcomes. In probabilistic systems like markets, this is devastating. Markets do not reward comfort, they reward consistency. A sound process can generate losses in the short term without being flawed. Markets are not deterministic, they are probabilistic. Short-term losses are part of the distribution, they are not messages. They are not warnings, they are not instructions to act. The mistake is treating pain as information. Pain is not information. Volatility is not a signal. It is the price of participation. If you want returns, you must tolerate uncertainty. If you want uncertainty, you must tolerate discomfort. This is why pre-commitment matters more than motivation. Motivation collapses under stress. Willpower fades when emotions intensify. Rules do not. You do not rise to the level of your intentions. You fall to the level of your systems. Successful investors decide in advance. They define their rules before emotions appear. They decide when they will enter, when they will exit, how much they will risk, and under what conditions they will do nothing. Doing nothing is often the most difficult decision, and frequently the most profitable one. The ability to sit with discomfort without acting is a rare competitive advantage, and like any skill, it can be developed. Most people believe investing success is about confidence. It is not. It is about emotional tolerance. The market will test you repeatedly. It will test your patience, your discipline, and your ability to remain consistent while your emotions demand action. And this is where most people misunderstand risk. They believe risk is volatility, they believe risk is price movement, they believe risk is temporary losses, but real risk is abandoning a sound process because it feels uncomfortable. Real risk is allowing short-term emotions to override long-term logic. Real risk is reacting when you should be remaining consistent. The market does not punish uncertainty, it punishes emotional inconsistency. If you remember only 3 things from this video. First, pain is not information. Do not confuse emotional discomfort with analytical insight. Second, volatility is the price of admission. If you want returns, you must accept temporary losses. Third, pre-commitment beats willpower. Design systems that protect you from your own psychology. The market does not reward intelligence alone. It rewards those who can remain consistent when their emotions are screaming for action.